Wow, this is a packed room. I don't know, like, actually, so people at the front, turn around. Turn around. Like, look at this. This is the community that we built. And there's people, like, jamming in the doors. People in the doors, come in. I'm going to give you a pass. Quick, find a seat. It's a story about people. Find a seat. It's OK. So Michael asked me to do a talk about how we use Node at Uber. So I hope you'll give me a little forbearance to tell a story, because actually, for me, a lot of the reasons why I'm at Uber is a story. And the thing that I do now sounds incredibly unsexy, or I should, see, already flubbed it. It sounds incredibly like unappealing, being a site reliability engineer. It actually turns out it's incredibly great, because I think after Uber, I'm going to have to take up skydiving. Because when a data center goes down, because all of the air conditioning broke, guess who gets a call? And guess who gets to coordinate like multiple continents of stuff, right? So this is a story for me about people. Uber is about people. And I know Uber has a mixed reputation. You know, you read all kinds of things. But I really remember when I first started working at Uber and I started telling the people that were driving me around, like, hey, I work for Uber. And they started telling me their stories. They started telling me that the little app that I was helping to build, or at least I don't write iOS code, but the back-end JavaScript that I write, crazy, right, was helping them earn a living. It was helping them spend more time with their kids. It was all kinds of things. I met a single father who basically, he would drop his daughters off at school, and then he would drive, and then he would pick them up, and then he would like play, put them to bed, and then go and drive again. And the thing that he really appreciated was the fact that it was his schedule. So for me, a large part of everything that I want to do with software is about people. It's about all of you. It's about all the people that the software that I write affects in the world. And I think we have an incredible power that no generation has been able to have so much impact. So my little history, as Michael said, I've been messing with Node for a while. I used to work at Joint. Can get a little cheer for Joint? For the many people that don't actually know Ryan Dahl very well, the idea that a company could get Ryan Dahl to spend a whole year or two in an office and actually get Node going is incredible to me. So, right? And the people that do know Ryan Dahl just laughed. So, Joint played this huge part. And I worked at Joint, and I met these two individuals. The guy, wait, my left or on your right is Curtis. Curtis was, I think, employee number 1 or 2 at Uber. And the guy on the left is my former boss, Amos, who ran the majority of the Node systems at Uber and still actually does. And I met these two guys because they came to the Joint office and said, hey, we need help with this Node thing. And we have this company. It's kind of new still. But we also want to use your incredibly new technology to build our entire company with, or at least some big part of it. So I met them. And if you went to the first NodeConf, you might actually remember the old Uber office was where we did the pickup for like NodeConf for with the buses. And then there's this other really weird random guy. So I don't know if people know this guy. This is Matt Rainey, who wrote a bunch of Node stuff. And he wrote this weird little app called Voxel. So this is like, I don't know, 2010, 2011. And there are 2 companies that are turning up at the Joint offices going, hey, we really want to like base the entire business on this JavaScript thing. And like, I'd come from Yahoo, and we were using like Node for like a couple things, or we were trying to get them to do it. But the front page of Yahoo was written in PHP, and all this stuff was written in C and Java and whatever. And nobody was really saying at that point, hey, let's just use Node for like things that are actually like super important. But these crazy people did. So a few years go by, I did some consulting, I left Joint, blah, blah, blah. I went and actually worked at change.org. I don't know if people know the sort of petition site. So I became really granola. And then I'm like, okay, well, like, what can I do that could possibly be like interesting after working at somewhere like change.org? And I started thinking about it, and I started looking at all these companies. And this is the guy that drove me today. His name is Roberto. He let me like take his picture and say his name. I asked him, of course. In Portland, it turns out that UberX is actually a truck. And he was telling me about like when it was flooding yesterday, he would just drive all the places that were flooded because there was no traffic, and he's in a truck. It was great. So like these are the reasons for me. It's like this empowerment, this like great gift that we have, and what do we do with it? So I found something, and I encourage you all to find something. Because it turns out the thing that I like best about Node is the amount of power that I've personally found it gives me. The ease with which I can do things with Node have amplified the power that I have. And I've tried really hard in recent years because you know what? Being a software engineer today is super easy, right? I could get a new job tomorrow. In fact, you know, I bet if I asked half the people in this room who's hiring, it would be half the people in this room. So, you know, the role of a software engineer is easy, but finding something that really matters to you is not. So I joined Uber, and I love this sort of NPM quote about Isaac about package management, because it turns out, NPM, still some sharp edges. Package management's really hard. The first thing that Uber gave me as a job, welcome to Uber, Tom. Please rewrite the Debian packages for Node. Yeah, wow. But it turns out that like most of Uber, for like the first, I think like $5 billion of valuation, was built using Node 0.8. Yeah. And then I built the 0.10 packages and then spent 6 months crowbarring them into place. And I think we still have a ticket right now, which is currently an on-break, to get rid of the last thing that uses Node 0.8. So that we can finally have Node 0.10 everywhere. And I did not say Node 5. Node 0.10 everywhere. But it turns out it's super stable, and there's a bunch of things, and we avoid a couple of the sharp edges, but it works for us. So when I joined, essentially Uber looked like this. You've got a phone, and you've got the real-time bit, which is all Node, and you've got the bit that got processed after the real-time bit, which is all in Python. And it's these two big monoliths, which was awesome. Here's one of my favorite bits of monolith code. Actually, this is in a new library where somebody actually had to write this. So the two different phone clients, the Android client and the iOS client, it turns out that the developers for iOS, I think this is right, for iOS prefer camel case, and the developers for Android prefer underscores. So they insisted on calling the server-side APIs using both camel case and snake case, because who didn't think to tell them just to get stuffed? I don't know. But yeah, so somebody, I assume, was just drinking because they accidentally called this reproduction of this old system to sake by mistake, in case you can't read that. So these are all the kinds of things that you get. So let's be real, right? Like, if we really get down to the heart of it, what is Node? Node is just an event loop with some JavaScript bits, right? Like, there's no magic here. It's not like Ryan invented some like space-age new paradigm. He just went, event loops are really great, and wouldn't it be really great if we could just use this like good VM that some people from Google wrote, because they wrote lots of good VMs in the past, and JavaScript's all right. Ryan doesn't actually even particularly care about JavaScript, but he just wanted a language. I like JavaScript, but let's be real. This is just about having an event loop. So what do we, Uber, do with it? Like, why does it matter to us? Well, my opinion of stuff that you should care about is service-oriented architectures. I'm going to repeat the fact that APIs are super important. We care about reliable routing. We care about everything being reliable, because it turns out that when Roberto's income relies on me not fucking things up, I take this stuff super seriously. We care about efficient protocols for the same reason, and we care about testing, which I'm not really going to go into in a keynote, but I'm just going to say testing, and use the little Easter Island head, because there's a massive body underneath that. So the platform rant. Do everybody know about the platform rant? Hands up who knows about the platform rant. Oh my goodness. All right. So it says Steve Yegi originally shared this. Please, please, please go and read this post. It's amazing. You know all those debates everybody has about, should you have like a repo, or should you do like SOA and do like microservices? Go read Yegi and read this post where he just rips into Amazon and then tells Google how they're messing it up, and decide for yourself. But the platform rant is super important because basically Uber works because we're a platform, right? When we first started, in fact, when I first started using Uber, my rider number is like 7,000. I was using Uber like when it began, and then stupidly didn't join for like 2 or 3 years. Whoops. Yeah. But like this stuff is like super critical. So basically, from our point of view, like what our system looks like now is we had these 2 monoliths, but now we have all of these APIs. We have this flood of APIs that talk to each other. And if you want to know why should I care about SOA, right? And you're like, oh, but I've got like my one little web app. Well, actually, most people get smartphones now. Smartphones are internet penetration, right? Smartphones are where the majority of Americans get their internet now. So there's 2 kinds of smartphone that you should care about. Sorry, Microsoft. I might have just got myself in trouble at work. And then we have some websites, and then we have our external API, which turns out is super important because lots of partners use that. And like this is critical stuff. So we built this thing called RingPop, which implements gossip protocols. And go and look at the slides. This is really complicated. It's a bit too complicated for the 3 minutes and 30 seconds I have left. But we implemented a bunch of stuff that we put in front of our HTTP. And the basic version, if I go to the next slide, is you've got a whole ring of servers. And instead of you sending a message to one server and you hope it works, instead the servers communicate with each other, and they make sure that the messages get to the right place. They make sure that things scale out. They make sure that we can just add more capacity at will. They make sure that if something drops out, if a server fails, we identify which server is bad, we redistribute its load to a different server, and do that. So why all this hocus pocus? Faulty node detection, load balancing. We can build all kinds of really interesting applications on this, right? So for us, we absolutely build websites in Node. We absolutely have Express apps. We use Michael's request library, all kinds of stuff. But actually, the heart of the $15 billion business, the heart of that is written as server-side Node, as APIs, as reliable distributed systems with queuing and replication and geospatial databases written in Node. So we have all of this stuff. T-channel is the implementation, the protocol that we use in this. It's a bit like Thrift. We use Thrift for the encoding, but then we have a bunch of like binary stuff on top. This stuff is open source. So, and testing. So I want to bring it back to the people. Yeah, it was that slide transition didn't work. I probably did that one on the plane. So I want to bring it back to the people because this is about you guys as well. It's not just about, and ladies and everybody. So it's about what we do as a community. So some of that is participating, but some of that is also starting to say, like, how do we grow, right? We've been building Express apps for ages. We've been building happy apps. We've been building, insert your favorite web framework. If this community needs to grow in the future, the advanced stuff that we're doing at Uber, the cutting edge stuff we're doing at Uber, the cutting edge stuff that people are doing at IBM and Walmart, all these places, is the stuff that we as a community have to embrace because that's how we'll thrive. We won't thrive by building endless Express apps. And that makes in some cases, it's fine, but we should be pushing our boundaries and saying, what is the next expectation we have from Node? So with that, given this is the Node Foundation, given that it's backed by the Linux Foundation, it's about openness, this is our open source page. RingPop, T-channel, the core technologies that we're using to build Uber's most critical systems, the systems that absolutely cannot fail, and if they even blink a little bit, I get pulled out of bed. These systems, those libraries are there for you, and they're there for the community. So thank you very much. Let's build a lot of reliable things that are useful to people. And my contact details are on the slide. Thank you.